Yeah, Brooklyn. I'm in the booth doing my Joel Ortiz
All right,
dance.
we're live. Chuddy's Corner. We're officially fourth of the way through the season. Celtics are 10-8, so we can round that down to 500. I mean, fourth in the East, but it doesn't really mean much. You know, top half of the league is pretty much flirting with 500. 3.5 out of first. A couple of tough losses in a row. I say both were disappointing, but I don't know what you think is more disappointing. It would have been nice to have those two wins. I mean, 12-6 is a lot different. We'd be in third place, and I think I'd feel a lot better about where we're at. But I don't know. What's your? Let's just get into biggest takeaways for the first quarter of the season. What are you looking at?
Well, I do think that, disappointing for the last few games is probably not, I think you're overstating it a little, how big of a difference it would be 10-8 to 12-6. Like you all said, only fourth to third. But anyway, the biggest takeaway from the season so far to me is clearly Jaylen Brown is the story, front and center. His ascension to what is now, I think, a star, borderline superstar, and that's no longer speaking about potential or the future. I mean, that's right now what Tatum and Brown are doing is basically as good as any combo you can name in the league on both ends. And again, you don't have to precede it with saying the best young this, the best this under this age. Like those are your two guys. I think for all intents and purposes, Brown has reached the point where he's pretty much untradeable. Certainly not as a young centerpiece in a package. I think Brown and Tatum are your wings for the foreseeable future. And then right now, that alone is good enough to compete with anyone. It's all about putting the right pieces around them, which I think we've kind of known, but now I don't think there's any question there. I think Jaylen has left it with beyond a shadow of doubt. I mean, you just look at the numbers he's putting up are absurd. The consistency of it is absurd. And I mean, he's been the one guy who's there. Without Tatum, he's still doing it. Without Kemba, he's still doing it. They're both there. He's still doing it. I mean, what more could you possibly want to see? So I think that's the biggest takeaway is that we've got our two guys that we're going to go forward with, and if we put the right pieces around them, they are good enough to win a championship as soon as this year.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen's obviously the biggest takeaway. There's not even anything close to second, really. Um, but yeah, I mean, like you said, it's really consistency because we've seen this from Jalen in the past. Not maybe not to this level, but and definitely not the consistency. That's really what I think it is. It's like game in and game out, and even front to back of every game. It's like he doesn't. He never looks like overwhelmed or overmatched. He's just confident. Every shot, taking in the hoop, shooting. I mean, he never looks like he doesn't want the ball, doesn't want to take the shot. He's just really turned into like that guy pretty much. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, he's been our best player this year. I'd say. I don't
I,
think it's.
I don't
I
think
don't
there's
think
any
it.
question.
Yeah.
He's been the best, and he's the only guy who's played in every game. I mean, out of
Yeah.
those guys, he's played in all 18. He's only scored under 20 twice all
Yeah.
season, and
Mm-hmm.
that was 18 and 19 are his two lowest outputs. Every other game, he's been 20 and over.
Yeah.
You watch him now, and it seems almost effortless. He's one of those guys. You look at the end of the third quarter. Oh, he's got a quiet 22. He's still
Yeah.
the efficiency. If anything, he could probably shoot more. He
Mm-hmm.
could put up more shots and more points, and honestly, he might have to. But overall, yeah, I just don't know. It's hard to really even nitpick with what we're seeing from him on a
Right.
night in, night out basis.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Because I mean, like you were saying, it's the going into the third. He's all of a sudden you look at the box score and he's at 22, 23, whatever, and then finishes strong. So I mean, the total output, I'd say, is less important to me than the how frequently he's scoring 20 plus. I think it's more important that he's putting up 20 to 30 than 27 or whatever 30 plus because that's really kind of been we know Tatum is just a natural, scorer. Like he can get 30 no problem. Having that second guy that will put up 20 plus every night is important, because then you can get, you can piece the rest of the points together with the rest of the roster. But I think his consistency is what's gonna, if we can be into that contender level, that's why we're gonna be. It's gonna be because of Jaylen Brown. Because Tatum is, who he's been trending towards. I mean, he's who he is. So that's not a surprise. I guess it's nice to see that, he hasn't taken a step back or, I mean, I wouldn't say he's flat either. I think, from this year to last year, he's still like a little, improved here and there. So it's not like, he's stagnant. But it's just so overshadowed by the jump that Jalen's taken.
Yeah. That's a luxury that at age 22, we kind of already take it for granted from Tatum. And I think we're quickly starting to expect and take it for granted from Brown. Like you said, I mean, every time those two are on the floor, you're under 50 points combined at this point is a disappointment. I think that's fair to say. And so, like I said, it's no longer about this is the best young pair. These are the best young wings. It's right now. There's Kawhi and Paul George out west. You certainly could say is as good or better of a pair on the wing. And that's it. I don't think there's any other team in the league that has a better wing combo. That's it. And wings are where it's at in the NBA right now. So, and then there's still so much room and, you expect them to even grow and get better. So I think that part of it long term, like you're set right now. It's just about, okay, they're already there and good enough. How do we make it work now? And, there's other groups. There's a Dame and CJ, but the defense on these two guys that we've got is just on another level. So I really think it's right there. And you go back even to that Lakers game the other night. Obviously, we lost, but Brown and Tatum, you could say, certainly like outshined and outplayed LeBron and AD. It was kind of the ancillary guys, and Schroeder outplaying Kemba makes it tough. But for a big two or whatever you want to call it, they're right there in the discussion with any other tandem in the league already, and that's not even factoring in the age and upside that still exists.
Right. It's very exciting. It's nice. It's funny to bring up Kawhi and PG, because we'll dip into that in the next mailbag pod, but we have some people that want to hear about, the trades or the lack thereof trades from the past. So we won't have time today, but next time.
Definitely.
Other than that, I mean, one of my biggest takeaways, and I don't know if it's too early to sound the alarm, but Teague and Tristan Thompson just can't play. They're not getting it done. Beginning of the year, Tristan looked all right. Looked like maybe he was figuring it out. Teague came out like pretty much hot, and then
great first game.
Looked like garbage ever since, really. And I mean, those were our two free agent signings, and if they can't play, then this year to last year, what we're looking at, we have we added Pritchard and Neesmith, who having trouble getting on the court. I think we need production out of Teague and Tristan, or we need to replace them with people who can, not free agents, but in trade market. Because we need, we don't need a center. I know you're happy with Tice and Robert Williams, but I still would like Tristan Thompson, like someone who's strong, who can, we can put a body on someone. I just don't think Williams is ready for that strong enough. Tice, I don't think can do it. And I think Teague had an important role. I mean, he's making me miss Brad Wanamaker, which I didn't think was possible. So that's a little, it's just disappointing. So I don't know. I wish we're getting a little bit more out of those two.
Well, I think it's definitely fair to say you wish we were getting more out of them. First of all, unnecessary shot at Wanamaker. But
I said I miss him.
That's true, I guess. He's had some nice moments in Golden State. But anyway, I think a lot of the issues, we'll say, with Thompson and Teague, and yeah, I mean, I'm starting to agree. They're looking like not great signings, certainly. Especially, I mean, Thompson was with the full mid level, so the Teague's money is kind of like whatever. He was worth a shot. Frankly, now we're going to need him with Smart out and Kemba, isn't going to play back to backs. It's unavoidable. Teague's going to play a lot. So I think this could kind of be his last hurrah act in a way, with Marcus out and Pritchard still out. Until everyone's healthy, this is kind of Teague's last chance, I would say, to prove himself. But anyway, his money, whatever, we can get off of that. And we've almost kind of organically replaced him with Pritchard. So when everyone's healthy, I agree Teague's not going to play, but I don't think it really matters, because between Kemba and Pritchard and Marcus, that's a fine point guard rotation. So I don't really think we need to replace Teague, at least in his ball handling. Thompson, he hasn't been great, but I also kind of think this, it largely is what he is now. He's never been very good on offense. His hands are frustrating, all that. And I think a lot of it is also just that he's been outplayed. I think, we started to kind of underappreciate Tice, and he's looked awesome, especially with Tatum and Kemba on the court, and Robert Williams too. I know you're saying you want more out of him, but I just, at a certain point, what more do you want to see? Just let him free. Let the guy play. His per 36 minutes, he's second in the NBA in blocks. He's ninth in steals. He's eighth in rebounds, and he's playing 19 minutes a game. Just give him Thompson's minutes. I still don't understand this argument. Everyone says, "Oh, well, we're eventually going to need him," or this and that. When? When are we going to need him? Like, what big guy? I can't think of really any matchups where I wouldn't rather take my chances with Rob Williams. He makes a mistake here and there, but the upside he brings and his potential is through the roof. We saw Thompson against Embiid. It's not like he's some savant on defense. I'll take what I get from Tyson Williams on the offensive end, which is pretty much nothing from Thompson. And they're both fine defenders. They're undersized, sure. But again, there just aren't that many guys in the league you can get who I would rather give those minutes to. So, I mean, I'm still in the camp of, yeah, I'm fine with saying Thompson has been a bust and he doesn't need to play. But again, I think the answers there are in-house. If anything, as disappointing as Teague and Thompson have been, I think it's still, wing depth, if anything, that we need.
Yeah. And I get that, I know we're not going to be able to stop Embiid or Giannis, the real bigs in this, in this conference, or even, Bam, I guess. But it's not about stopping them. It's more just someone that could just bang with them for like 5 to 10 minutes. I know, just like put up a little bit of resistance. I mean, we used to be able to slow down Embiid. And I don't know, maybe if he's just too good now.
When were we slowing him down? I mean, he scored 35 a game in the playoffs last year, and it's fine. I just, again, look around there. Everyone's saying, oh, like the Nets are going to go get Andre Drummond. Yeah. Go watch some highlights of Andre Drummond versus Embiid. Anyone who thinks Drummond is the answer for the Celtics, I implore you to go search that matchup through the years and see how Drummond has fared against Embiid. Again, there just aren't very many good big men in the NBA. I think you live with it and you find ways to punish them other ways. Rob Williams being a lob threat and Tice stretching the floor, make Embiid work on defense. Thompson, it's not like he's unplayable. We can throw him in for 10 minutes. He can use 6 fouls. I just putting more money and assets into that position when I think you've got a guy in Robert Williams at 23 who can be a very, very serviceable to above serviceable big man now and in the future. Just let the kid play. Like, what's the worst that can happen? I don't know. And even
I'm all about.
He's done fine against other bigs. He as well as you could expect. He held his own against bigger guys. Just been an issue in the past.
No, I'm not anti Robert Williams at all. I want more of him. When I say,
so when you say getting a third center to bang, though, it's going to be at the expense of his minutes. We've got 2 starting caliber centers, and I'm fine with playing them together at times, but I think a Williams-Tice rotation where they both play 30-ish minutes is fine. You don't need another big.
I guess. I mean, ideally,
it just seems pointless to invest in. Again, when we already have Thompson, it's unless we somehow trade him. I don't think he's
ideally,
going anywhere. So you want to bring in another center? Like,
ideally
I don't get it.
Thompson will turn into that guy, the guy that I'm looking
Yeah.
for.
And why won't he?
I think he can, but he just
figured.
hasn't yet this year. So I don't know if like I can't figure out if he's just lost and hasn't figured out the the system yet or whatever, or if he's just old now. I mean, I'd like to think.
I don't think it's been that bad. I mean, he
No,
hasn't been good, but like again, this is kind of who he is. What were you expecting? He's grabbed offensive rebounds. Um, he sucks at offense pretty much,
yeah.
which is just what he is. He has these gross little floaters and running hooks, but again, we don't want him for post ups.
Well,
Which is
I think
fine.
that's a big
We
part
don't
of
want
it.
a center taking up possession. He'll happily run around and set screens for Tatum and Brown, which is what we need. He doesn't want the ball. He's happy to do that role. He's just, not that great.
Well, I think that's part of it is the offense. I don't want any offense from him. If he, I
But
think I think if he stopped shooting anything other than like offensive rebound putbacks, and when I'm saying putbacks, like under the basket dunk layup, not like, not even like a 4 foot floater. Like
I'm with you.
I
But
want him get that rebound,
I don't
kick it
know.
out. And
I
when
don't think he's shooting that much.
I don't know.
It's bad when it happens.
If I'm noticing his offense, then it's too
Yeah.
much.
It's fine.
I want like Robert Williams. I think he plays perfect offense for his skill set, and I think that's sort of what he should
really
be.
good passer. Williams is a really good passer. He's not.
Well, yeah,
He's a 3-pointer away from. I mean, if he had a better jump shot, he'd be a borderline elite offensive player. You could argue that in limited minutes he already is just by what he brings athletically. I mean, a perfect example of that Lakers game the other night. He slipped a screen. They tried to switch it real quick. He slipped it. I forget if it was Brown or Kemba threw him, kind of a perfect pocket pass on the bounce, and he bobbled the pass, but recovered it so quickly and still dunked it before anyone had even recovered. And I was just couldn't help but thinking in my hands, if that was Thompson, just the difference in speed. And Thompson, first of all, isn't catching anything. It seems like those hands on offense are just brutal. And when he does, it's just he's not getting up there in time. He's trying to tap it in. Williams just plays with so much force and athleticism alongside the Jays. It just seems like for this offense to reach the potential it kind of can, that's the guy I want in there at center.
Yeah.
So
I'm happy about that.
I have no desire to go out and get another big. Really, I don't see the point.
I mean, I don't want to really spend assets or anything, but I mean, I don't know if it was a buyout.
Give me a name.
I don't know. That's the thing.
So exactly.
I don't know
so that's why, in theory, if you could make up a player, sure. I mean, but I just don't know who we're gonna get. And I would possibly
I want Baines back. I want Baines back. That's who I want.
I guess.
A guy that can play 0 minutes or 15, given on 20, given on a certain the night.
Baines hasn't worked out great in Toronto, so maybe he'd be available. But again, what are you giving up to get Baines? And then are those minutes you're giving him at the expense of Robert? I don't know. I mean, like you said, if he's easy enough to acquire, sure. But I still think the whole we need a big man is just overplayed and just frankly not true.
All right. Fair enough.
What's it going to be a problem against one team in the NBA? If we make it to the Lakers in the finals where we don't have a great big, I'm fine with it. I mean, even the other night, again, we saw Anthony Davis, as good a night as he had. He shot 11 of 25, and those were even the little shots he was making. They're tough looks that were contested. Like, I'm just okay with it, I guess, is where I'm at.
He was playing kind of a weird offensive game. I mean, I know he's making a lot of those those fall away, Tatum-like shots. He was hitting them, but
sure.
He had a guy. He had 6'6" people that were 6'6" on him.
That's what I'm saying. But I mean, those guys are strong. A guy like Ogilvy, sure, he can shoot over him. But if we're playing the Lakers and Ogilvy is bodying up Davis and he's settling for a turnaround fadeaway with a contest, I don't know. I'll just live with that. I feel like you're playing the Lakers. They're just a damn good team. If you hold them to AD mid-range, you'll kind of live with that at the end of the day.
Sure.
Just kind of the lesser of all the evils they present. So That's where I stand on that one. But to go back to your very original point, certainly disappointments from Teague and Thompson, and would have expected more. And it's looking like, yeah, we kind of blew it with both of those offseason signings.
I'm ready to give up on Teague, not Tristan yet.
Again, Teague was the veterans minimum for what, $1.5 million,
Right.
and I just don't know who else was out there. So he filled a hypothetical need, and I don't think there were better options. And frankly, we just got lucky that Pritchard is just better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a nice pick. I mean, without Pritchard, I'd be very concerned about the point guard position, but good enough. Let's just get him healthy. So for me, another takeaway, I know we've talked about it. I'm like confident. I'm confident when Shemmy's on the court. I've come around on, I like what he's given us, and the leap he's made from this year to last year, I think is significant. It's not like, nothing flashy. He's like, just, again, it's like a confidence thing. Like Jalen, he just like he's not afraid to shoot it. He'll put the ball on the ground. He'll take it to the rack if he has an opening. I don't want him doing that too often, but it's nice to see. I mean, that's always been the thing. Is like he's been a good defender. He serves a good role in that end, but he was not giving anything offensively. And he always looked like a guy that could hit the corner three, and now he's like doing it. So I'm confident with him. I think that's a nice development, which also kind of goes my other thought about how disappointed Grant, because I thought him and Grant were kind of going to fill that same role. But Grant's been disappointing to me. Shemmy's kind of taken over that role. I'm not giving up on Grant, but I think if Grant could be, a less jacked version of Shemmy, then that would be a nice role. But I don't know if that's going to be him this year or not.
Yeah, it's been tough to watch for Grant. I feel for him, and the Celtics, they've tried to get him going. They tried, starting him. They tried playing him with the first unit deep off the bench, and he's just getting DNPs lately. It's tough, and he's struggling. I feel for him, but I kind of agree with you. He's the odd man out right now, and a lot of it, I don't think it's exactly the same role, but yeah, Shemmy has just been better. Credit to Drew Hanlon and working with him on the shot, and credit to Shemmy for just, like you said, it seems like he's taken that step. He has the confidence. I think all everyone wanted was, like you said, to be a kind of a 3-and-D guy. The defense has never been questionable. He was arguably our best defender on LeBron and Anthony Davis the other night. So, I mean, to just be able to play a guy like that without thinking you're going 4-on-5 on offense is really all you need. And like you said, he's there. I thought another great moment from that Lakers game, he came down, got the ball in transition, open three, no hesitation, fired it up, missed it, long rebound right back to him, another open look, no hesitation, fired it up, drained it.
Yep.
I cannot imagine him doing that. Even as recently as the bubble, he would have looked like a deer in the headlights the second time. We all would have cringed. It was, no hesitation. That's what you want to see. And he drained it 2 looks in a row. The second one. And even at the time, I was thinking he's going to make it. So yeah, I actually had it noted that, I kind of want to see Shemmy play more consistently. I feel like he has warranted more consistent minutes, and it's been kind of weird. And I mean, I know everything with Brad has been weird, and with the rotations and matchups and this and that, but he's versatile enough. He can pretty much find a way to play, and that we can use him with what he brings on defense against almost any team. So I think his minutes need to be more solid and consistent. I agree with you. Going forward, he could be kind of that answer as the wing/stretch 4 off the bench that it seems like we need, but I think he can kind of fill that need. So I agree. Gaining confidence, gaining trust.
Yep. So, I mean, I'll probably come around to this later, but it's more rotation. He's one of the guys that I think should be taking minutes away from some of these other guys that are underperforming. I know he can't take Teague's minutes, but Grant, I think you gotta use Grant sparingly now. I'm happy giving Shemmy Tristan's minutes. I know he probably can't take them all, but I mean, I'd like Shemi playing like 20 minutes a game. I mean, I'm happy with that. I mean, I guess could be matchup dependent, but I think he's earned that. He's
I'm with you.
playing
I'm with
confident.
you. And I
So
also think, you say he can't take Teague's minutes, but I guess we'll get into it a little more. We can get into it right now, but with kind of the injuries to Smart and with Pritchard being out and Kemba, still not playing certainly back to backs, and who knows what else, what will kind of the rotations and lineups look like and how much Teague are we going to be subjected to? I think an option that I kind of hope we try would be playing some lineups without a true point guard and just, letting either one of or both Jalen and Jason just kind of run the point. I think they're both capable of doing it for stretches. And, it's hard to imagine that the offense running that way would be worse than with Teague running the offense. So I think it's another opportunity to get in a guy like Shemi who could play the 3, the 4, even the 5 with the right guys in there. Why not go to him over Teague? I mean,
yeah,
we'll see if it's if it's ugly, it's ugly. But I don't think playing Brown at quote unquote point guard for 5 minutes instead of Teague is going to hurt us certainly.
yeah, I think that's a good segue into the Smart injury because pretty much where I was thinking we would go there next, anyways. So I guess it's kind of trying to figure out what we're gonna do without Smart for hopefully 2 weeks, but 2 to 3, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
The Pritch timeline is probably about the same. I mean, is that the latest?
I think Pritchard's closer. He could come back during the trip potentially,
Yeah.
but either way, neither was back immediately.
Right. So yeah, assuming we don't have Smart or Pritchard, I want Tatum and Jalen taking the ball up the court. 50% of the time at least. I know Teague's. He's gonna roll Teague out there.
Well, 50% of the time. I mean, what about Kemba?
Oh well, I mean, when Kemba's not on the floor is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So when we don't have a point guard, when Kemba's not on the court, I want Jalen or Tatum taking the ball off the court, initiating the offense. And I know they're not. I mean, I think they can do it. I think Jalen can not really run the point, but I think they can both take the ball up the court and set up the offense. And I think that's all we really need. I think overall the teams, we're good at moving the ball. We're good passing pretty much, from top to bottom. So I mean, I don't think we need. We're going to need in the short run, anyways, an actual point guard.
And again, it's not like T's going to be suddenly out of the rotation completely, especially now with Smart out. He's going to still play. I'm just hoping his minutes don't go up, exponentially. I'd rather they experiment with other lineups like this when they can. T's still going to play. And, he can get hot. He can have a good night. It's not like he can't. He's, still decent athleticism, playing a little bit of defense. It's been bad. Don't get me wrong. But, you're talking like he's suddenly not going to play at all, which I certainly don't think is the case.
He has to play. I mean,
yeah,
just from lack of
I think
bodies.
we'll probably see some Tremont Waters at least at some point on this road trip. Certainly, if Kemba sits a game for rest, I think he could, potentially even be starting. So
yeah. No, I mean, we have Teague's playing like 15 to 20 minutes a game right now. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that go to like 25.
Well, I think the bigger issue is that, going forward, if we make it to the playoffs and everyone's healthy, Teague won't be in the rotation.
Right.
I think it's pretty clear. So, I mean, again, if he has to fill minutes in the regular season, whatever, that's kind of what he's here for. But once we get to the playoffs, he should not be. If we need Teague playing minutes off the bench, we're probably in trouble.
Yeah, we're in trouble, right? I mean, we're replacing 30 plus minutes with Marcus, so he's probably going to get a little bump. But like we're saying,
and I think also the injury to Marcus too. Like we said, obviously Marcus is a guard, but it's another opportunity to get Rob more minutes. The Time Lord Tice double big lineup looked awesome against the Lakers. And those guys, they bring more to the table. Neither one is a Tristan Thompson kind of stuck in cement in the middle of the pace. They can run around and do stuff on both ends. So that lineup looked really good. I wouldn't I wouldn't be upset if we kind of started with that lineup going forward, at least until Marcus is back, to just give us just more minutes with better players. I think it's
Yeah.
kind of the easiest
Yeah,
way to
no.
put it.
I'd
Is
rather give more minutes to the players that are playing
right,
well than
exactly,
just have Teague fill out the other
right.
whatever it is,
So yeah,
13, 14 minutes that we need from the Marcus injury.
I'm with you. Let's
Um,
get creative. And again,
yeah,
I'd rather see for a 5 minute burst, especially if Tatum and Brown or Tatum and Kemba. If some combo of those two are on the court, we don't need Teague's ball handling. Give those minutes to Edwards or
yeah,
Neesmith. See if they can get hot.
yeah, yeah. I'd be happy with Tremont getting 10 minutes maybe. Honestly, just tell him go out there, like don't turn the ball over, just don't
Yeah.
make any mistakes. Just take up the court, set up the
Mhm.
offense, go sit in the corner, and if you get an open look, take it.
Yeah.
Um, Preferably not Carson, but I don't know.
Hmm.
Maybe he's turned a corner to being like a 15th player. And you said Neesmith too. I'm I'm ready to just throw him in the fire. I mean, if we're gonna do it, this is the time. I mean, take your
Yeah.
lumps now. I know he's not a point guard, but throw him in there with Jalen and Tatum, and just let him sit in the corner, let him just shoot open shots. I mean, if he's out there with you know two of Tatum, Jalen, Kemba, he's gonna get open looks, which he kind of has been.
Yeah.
And I guess
Yeah.
he's starting to hit a few of them, but
Well, so
let's just let him work through his mistakes now.
one thing I
Let's try and
noticed
do it.
before the Lakers game was 2 games in a row, and I think it was the Cavs and the Bulls. I could be wrong. Maybe it was the Spurs and the Cavs. But anyway, 2 games in a row they went zone on us. Brad threw Neesmith in right away, and both times I think the first or second possession he got an open look and banged a three. So something like that. I mean, again, all we need this kid to be, a Duncan Robinson who's not even as good as Duncan Robinson, but learn to get yourself open, to get the looks that you like, and he's starting to do it. We're starting to see it. That built some confidence. He's getting in. He's running off some actions. He made a couple plays going to the hoop, some athletic plays. He made a nice defensive play the other night too in transition. So just starting to see more stuff. He's starting to look like he belongs on an NBA court, which is not something you could say about the first few weeks of the season. He came in and looked completely lost. He's looked less lost. So I'm with you. Keep his minutes coming, build on this, get more confidence, and hope that he can be relied on, I guess, sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, I think because he was off to such a slow start, every time he comes in, if he misses an open three, it's just amplified. It's like, oh my god, this kid sucks. And it's like he's not going to make every shot.
No.
So I think we just gotta work with the kid, and he'll figure it out. The only way he's going to figure it out is playing. I mean, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So let's throw him in there. Let's
I'm with
see
you.
what he can do.
He's learning. He's learning on
yeah.
the fly.
All right. All right. So let's get into some concerns. What do you think are some of the biggest concerns going forward? I guess other than health.
Yeah. So I mean, we obviously kind of touched on some of the fringe concerns with the depth and the immediate concerns of a Marcus injury. So I mean, in terms of concerns immediately, without Smart, obviously he's our heart and soul. He's our leader. He's our anchor on the defensive end. But we're also going to miss his offense. He's kind of been the de facto third scorer, at least the most consistent one, which obviously you wouldn't expect to continue with Kemba back, but he's been providing a much needed scoring lift and really carrying our offense at times. Not to mention his playmaking, leads the team in assists, and he gets us into a lot of sets. So I think people will obviously jump to the defense and what we're missing there, but I think we're going to see how much we miss him on offense too, and a lot of the impressive stats Brown and Tatum are putting up, as much as we love it, a lot of it is also out of necessity because we don't have a lot of other scoring and creating options on offense. And Marcus he's become one of the better ones at that position, in the Eastern Conference. So we're gonna miss him a lot on both ends. That's obviously a concern just in terms of keeping a good seed going forward. But in terms of long-term concerns, I don't know if I'm ready to call it a concern yet. I'm curious to see where you're at, but obviously Kemba Walker has not looked like an all-star that he was last year. the good news I would say is that he hasn't looked bothered by the knee at all. He looks like he's got, his usual burst. He's jumping around and smiling, kind of doing usual Kemba stuff, which makes me optimistic. It's just, he hasn't gotten in a rhythm. He's made a very, very bad turnover against the Spurs, which kind of cost us the game, which was just so uncharacteristic. I mean, when do you see Kemba get his pocket picked? One of the best ball handlers in the league. So, I mean, again, that's kind of fluky. You would think in a vacuum, just a great defensive play by DeJounte Murray. What can you do? You tip your cap. No big deal. And then against the Lakers, to shoot 1 of 12, obviously one of his worst shooting nights ever. And then that just a great look at almost the buzzer that looked like, vintage Kemba. That is his shot, and almost like a whoa moment to me, at least, that he missed that, because that is just, how many times have we seen him get into that kind of step back? He got some separation, looked like he got good lift and just back rim. So again, easy enough to say, yeah, 2 fluky games, or are you concerned? Because I think, as we said, Kemba's kind of the clear and obvious guy, at least for this year. I don't think we're moving Kemba this year. So, like we said to start the show, Jalen and Jason are there. It's what do we have around them? And I think that right now kind of all depends on Kemba. If he's close to all-star level Kemba, we're a title contender right there with anyone. If he is kind of what we've seen the last few games and inconsistent or has lost a step, it's probably going to be tough to get to, true title contender status this year. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Kemba's on my list, but not worried yet. He looks, like you said, he looks healthy. And if he's healthy, then I'm not really worried about him.
Right.
I mean, there's no reason why a healthy Kemba can't be a above average player in the NBA. Just consistency, getting in the rhythm. Hasn't been that long. He's back for
No.
a couple of weeks? Like, how many
Well,
games has he
yeah,
played?
he's only played in about 6 games, and he's had some good
6
shooting
games.
nights too. It's not like he hasn't made a jump shot. He had a really bad game against the Lakers, which is, I think amplified obviously because of the stage and the, a big game, and obviously he missing the game-winning shot. Well, 1 of 12 is bad, but like you said, are we suddenly worried that he can't shoot anymore? Because physically, it's looked fine for the most part.
Yeah, so I'm not worried about him yet. And
Okay.
we don't need, I don't think we need him to be an all-star or, even all-star level.
Definitely not.
All we need now, thanks to Jalen, I think all we really need, like, if he can be, give us 20, close to 20 a game, every once in a while, just like take over for 5 minutes, have kind of a classic Kemba, stretch.
Exactly.
We don't need him putting up 25 a game and,
That's
carrying
exactly
us for an
it.
entire game. So, I mean,
we need him to be steady.
Yeah, that's why I'm not worried either. Because, like, even if that's probably like 80%, if he was 80, 85% of what Kemba was, last year, the year before, that's good enough. So, I mean,
yeah,
if you can get back to that, then it's fine with me.
I'm with you. I think we want him more. Think kind of the role Kyle Lowry played for the Raptors a couple of years ago. He'll obviously never be the defender, but we just need him to steer the ship, kind of. Be the guiding light. Let Jalen and Tatum do what they do, and pick up where you're needed to. Be kind of the clutch guy who takes the big shot when you need to. Keep the ball moving. Keep everyone going. Even I'm not really worried about the stats. It could be 15 points a game. It's just he's got to do the stuff that Kemba's got to do. Get into the basket. He's looked good. So again, like we said, I think he's fully embracing it. He's saying all the right things. It's been tough to watch because, again, you're just so used to him making these shots. So, yeah, I'm with you. I wouldn't call that a concern officially, but at the same time, when you say what is the biggest concern, it seems like everything else would kind of pale in comparison if the Kemba thing kind of continues this way and becomes a concern.
Yeah, and I think another small thing that he could do would be get to the line a little bit more. he's been like a 5 attempt guy in his career, which is, I think, is fine. I mean, right now he's, getting the line like 2 times a game. Just draw a couple fouls. I mean, it's not like he's an elite, elite at getting fouled, but he's an elite free throw shooter. I think that'll kind of help him settle down. So we'll see a little bit more of that. I know it seems like he's been trying. He hasn't been getting many calls. And I don't know if it's not because he's not getting the calls or he's just not,
right.
He's not doing it right.
And I also think it would be more concerning if the fit out there with Jalen and Tatum seemed awkward or anything like that. But it hasn't. Tatum and Brown have still been the same guys, which I think is the most important thing. So I think Kemba fitting in has been fine. I think just getting into an offensive rhythm. And I think if he plays the exact same game as he played the other night, but hits half those shots, we're not even having this conversation.
Yeah. If he hits that shot,
even that one shot, you're right.
Everyone's like, Kemba's back.
You're totally right. He hits that one shot that he missed by 3 inches, and we're not even talking about this. We're talking about how we just beat the Lakers and, what championship is on.
So I guess we're both in agreement where it's like, we're not concerned about Kemba, but we're concerned if Kemba's not Kemba. So if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
We're concerned if he doesn't come back to his, who he is, but we don't think he's not going to come back to who he is. All right. So for me, I mean, it's obviously, Kemba's was on my list, of course. Kind of touched on like the rotation where, I want Brad to just start playing the right guys. And I know we haven't had consistency with the lineup and, who's been playing and whatnot, and I think that's something that'll come as we get closer to the end of the year, but let's just start, let's start pounding the guys that are, are playing well. And I think it's just,
who are those guys? Well, no, I mean, obviously I think the main guys are playing. I don't want Tatum and Brown playing more. Like those guys are fine. I'm fine with. If anything, they'll probably play less as the season kind of grinds on in preparation for the playoffs. So I'm assuming you mean when it comes to kind of our bench rotation.
Yeah.
You want him to just kind of trim it.
Time Lord, Shemi, give them, as many minutes as possible. I mean, Tice is he's giving us like 23 a game. That's fine.
I'm considering Tice a starter. I mean, I'm considering when everyone's healthy right now, I think, Thompson has been passed. It's Kemba, Marcus, Jalen, Jason, Tice. That's our starting lineup, I think, as of, right now, if we had to play a playoff series today.
And Kemba, too, you got to figure he'll start playing 30 minutes a game, assuming health. Yeah. Maybe not for like a month or two or whatever it is, but, he's only playing like 25 minutes a game right now, which actually isn't, it's not more than expected, but I just feel like he's not out there as much as he's been because he's, kind of not really, taken over. So it kind of seemed he's kind of just like, in the background a little bit. So, I mean, you get him up to 30, he can kind of trim down a little bit of the Teague minutes. Maybe give Tice a couple more.
And
get Tristan, and Pritchard will get some more minutes. Shemi, give him some more minutes. Robert some more minutes. I mean, those are a lot of minutes. So
a lot of minutes, but I mean, again, how many games have we even played with all these guys available? I think, talking about what we're doing now in January, February games where we're kind of, the fans don't want to hear it, but I don't think they're super concerned about the record. Obviously, we want to win and avoid the play-in, but the key is getting healthy, as it always has been, is being healthy and in a rhythm when the playoffs start. That's a long way away. There's no reason to burn anyone out, but I think, I mean, right now, we got the 5 guys we just mentioned, and then off the bench, it's heavy minutes of Pritchard, Ojale, Robert Williams, and like that's pretty much it.
That's it.
I mean, that's 8 guys. That's an NBA rotation. Is 8 or 9 guys, so it's maybe one more guy depending. Then the last guy is matchup dependent, or someone who we pick up between now and the trade deadline. But I think so much time is spent squabbling about the 10th man, the 11th man, the 12th man. And it's like, when it matters, we're going to play 8 or 9 guys.
Right.
And we pretty much already know who those guys are, barring an injury or a trade. So, I mean, I just think that the things you're complaining about are kind of, I don't expect to change in the regular season. And I'm not even sure they should, because again, if we want to make a trade at some point, you want someone to be desirable. If guys like Carson Edwards and Grant Williams are getting DNPs every night, no one's going to want to trade for them. If Carson Edwards can establish a semi-meaningful and consistent bench role, even though it might seem like it's hurting us in the interim, if that raises his trade value even enough where a team is curious enough about him to just, take him in a pick for a good player, like that's probably worth it for us in the long run. And I mean, if not, then whatever. At least we realize he's not ever going to be good, and we don't bother keeping him on the roster, or he is good and he just plays good minutes for us. Like, there's almost no downside at this point.
Yeah. One other thing, it's kind of a stretch. I put it on my concerns. It's not really a concern, and it kind of goes back to the whole Kemba thing. Is we're playing all right. We're 10-8, and Brown and Tatum are playing, all NBA levels. So that's great. But what happens if they go into, a little mini slump or something? I mean, we're them playing all NBA. We're doing everything we can to, win these games. And, if one of them goes, 5 games when they're having a tough shooting, stretch or whatever, we need to get that offense from somewhere else, which ideally would be Kemba. So I think that's all kind of tied in together. And I'm not worried that Brown and Tatum will hit a wall, but it's hard to play, all NBA level for 82 or whatever it is, 72 games, however many games are playing this year. So it's not, like I said, it's not a concern. It's just something we got to consider. We need to get scoring from somewhere. We need that third scorer, which is hopefully Kemba. And if not, it'd be nice to add someone else.
When Pritchard comes back, he was kind of settling into that role where, 10, 12 points a game out of him and someone who can be kind of your shooting threat. I mean, if anything, my concern is probably just that who's our shooter? We don't have a guy who's just spotting up shooting. I mean, it's Neesmith if he can get to a point where you give him real minutes, but there's not a guy in the rotation. I mean, we have good shooters, don't get me wrong, but if you look at our kind of stats, we're pretty low in terms of 3-point volume, which I mean, a lot of that is because our 2 main guys get to the hole so much and we get good looks. But it'd be nice to just have that guy who you can bring in, immediately stretch the defense, make him chase. So that's probably one area where we could improve, and that will kind of naturally help everyone else with scoring, including whoever that player is. But I mean, like you said, when everyone's healthy, you still want the top 2 guys taking pretty much 20 or so shots each. Kemba settling in behind that, and then Marcus, Tice, Time Lord, whatever. I think it's pretty much there when we need it. But yeah, at least for the grind of the regular season and inevitably having guys in and out and off nights and this and that, it would be nice to have one more scoring option. I agree with you.
Yep. So also let's get into, things that you think we have been doing well that we should keep doing or do more of. There's a lot that we've done well. There's some stuff that we haven't done well. So what do you think what have you liked so far that we should keep doing and do more of?
Well, I mean, again, I've liked a lot of what we've done, and a lot of what we've done, we've had to do out of necessity. So, I mean, for example, the 2 big lineup, which I think everyone was sick of watching Thompson and Tice try to play together. It's pretty maddening. But last game we saw the Tice Robert Williams lineup, and it was incredibly effective. So I think that's something that we, could see more of now, especially with some of these guys out. I want to see more of Neesmith. We already touched on that, but I think, it was kind of unexpected, at least to me, when we kind of just got thrown in there. I think he was the first or second guy off the bench one of these last few games after barely playing non-garbage time minutes. And it seemed like he did pretty well for himself. So I'd like to see more of that. More Ojale, we already talked about. And again, just more of Tatum and Brown. I think they're so efficient, but I wouldn't mind going to them more as much as they're already involved. Like we said, this is a good opportunity to, I think, let them run the offense more. We barely have to run any stuff for Jaylen Brown, and that's obviously a virtue because he's so good without the ball and finds so many ways kind of organically within the offense to get involved. But he could run more pick and roll. He could run more ISO. So, for the most part, I don't think we have to change a ton other than, again, kind of stuff we've already talked about. But I think, keep doing more of what we're doing. I want to see more of Rob Williams, I think, is the biggest thing. He could play, 8 to 10 more minutes a game, pretty much take over that main center spot along with Tice, where the two of them are taking almost all of our conventional big man minutes, is probably the biggest thing that I want to see more of.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've talked about it enough with, more minutes for Time Lord and, whoever. So overall, I'm happy finally with the offense. Not that we haven't been good offensively, but just the efficiency. I don't know what the numbers are, but just from watching, I feel like we're much more consistent. We have a lot fewer, periods of time where we're just kind of flat. I mean, I know it's kind of hard to avoid in the NBA. You're going to have, 3 or 4 minutes where you're just every once in a while where you just can't score. But it's not like even the playoffs last year. We just go through these stretches where we just couldn't do anything. We weren't moving the ball. It was all ISO, and it wasn't even good ISO basketball.
Well, and I think so much of that, obviously, we keep mentioning it, but it's just the fact that even now, this wasn't the case as recently as last year, but even now, just having one of Tatum or Brown on the floor is pretty much good enough for the offense, because we've seen some lineups that, the other night I'm seeing Tatum or Brown out there with 4 other guys who you would consider almost non-factors on offense, not completely at this point, but it's pretty much Jalen out there and the offense is fine. He can do everything. So yeah, the offense, I think we're tied for 10th in offensive efficiency and we're 13th in defensive, which is, climbing thanks to the last few games. But again, overall, I think we've had no consistency in our lineups and rotations, and all these things seem like they're things that'll sort themselves out as the season goes along and as we kind of condense the lineups and rotations and everything just gets more comfortable and the pressure and the effort ratchet up. I have no reason to think that, we won't get back to playing defense at an elite level and now offense again, because so many of our guys now are two-way threats where they weren't fully. So I think the sky is the limit for the offense. And the defense, I have no concerns really with long term, other than kind of Kemba, if he's going to be out there in crunch time, getting exposed. But again, not a super big concern, especially with all the plus defenders that would be around him.
Yeah. Defense was another one that was on my list. Obviously, start the year was a little bit ugly at times.
Yeah.
But, I think we're playing well overall, team defense. We've had the on-ball defenders, for a while. I mean, we have good one-on-one guys. And the team defense has always kind of been our bread and butter. And I think we're finally coming around to that. I think you said, 13th in efficiency now.
Yeah, which the way you hear us talk about it, you'd think we were, bottom third of the league, and we were down there. And there were some really ugly performances, but even in those worst games, just watching it's felt like, I don't want to say a lack of effort, but things that are just very fixable. And even in the last game, I mean, Jalen had a couple mental lapses on D where he kind of got, lost his man and gave up an easy look. And, Tatum got beat and kind of swiped at the ball a couple times instead of contesting, and it's stuff. I don't know. I don't want to say I'm letting him off the hook, but it's like, at the same time, I wouldn't say I'm concerned, because I know in a playoff series, we're not going to see that. We know what these guys are capable of. And, I hate to say guys aren't trying, but for lack of a better term, it's like we're not seeing 100% effort on defense. So I'm not concerned that these guys suddenly have regressed on that end of the ball.
Yeah, so, no, that was actually, I was going to say that next is,
okay,
there have been some lapses here and there. And
definitely.
I see it mostly from, when I say mostly, I see it from the Jays occasionally. And it's not, I know that probably comes with, the grind of the season, and, they're giving, 100% of their effort on offense too. So, I mean,
right.
I'm not saying they take the plays off, but I think maybe, when you're the focal point of the offense, sometimes you get a little complacent on D here and there.
Exactly.
Not
And
enough
look
to be concerning, but
look around the
um,
NBA too. It's not like anyone is busting ass on both ends every possession. You know, Kawhi Leonard's not. The other night he's taking possessions off on
mhm,
defense all the time in the regular season. A lot.
yeah,
Everyone
yeah,
does it.
that's what
So
stars do.
it is, and you know, Jalen has been carrying a absurd workload on offense,
Right.
especially in a lot of these games with no Tatum and,
Yeah.
and no Kemba. So
Yeah.
like I said, it's nothing that is seems like a nitpick at this point.
Yeah.
And you know, we saw in a big game against the Lakers, we stepped up. We held them to 96 points. I thought the defense was, for the most part, excellent.
Yeah. And it's not, it's
We're
not
capable.
anything. It's not anything to do with their
No,
capabilities at all. It's just
right. The capabilities are
like
fine. The scheme is fine. I think if we see max effort, I'm really not too worried
yeah,
about it.
exactly. All right. So then, what needs to change? I think we've pretty much hit on all of that.
Yeah.
For the most part, I mean, it's been rotation. We just talked about, some defensive lapses, but not, it's not huge. Kemba, hopefully getting back to Kemba. I don't know. Is there anything else that you are really looking for?
So I think we've talked about kind of what needs to change within the team that realistically can change. So the only other thing I would say at this point that really can change would be a trade. We've obviously got the traded player exception. And you know, we're getting closer to the point where it's realistic, and we're starting to hear the whispers come out. You know, JJ Redick yesterday was already rumored, you know, Pelicans are moving him. Boston's one of the teams on the list. So we're gonna start hearing about it. Since we've got that, you know, 28 million, which is really more like 21 million if we don't want to go over the hard cap, but still, it's enough money to basically take on any of these guys. So I guess that would be, do you see a clear and obvious, I don't want to say player, but is there like a glaring need that you think we have to go and address? And I will say, because of everything we talked about with Tatum and Brown, how clearly ready they are to win now, I'm more willing to go aggressive at the trading deadline, so to speak. But having said that, you know, what's really going to be out there? What can we get? And how much do we want to give up kind of in the interim, as opposed to keeping alive all of our draft equity to make the next kind of superstar trade? Because that's the one thing. It's easy. I see a lot of Celtics fans saying, you know, well, go get Aaron Gordon, go get blah blah blah. Okay, you get Aaron Gordon. From what I'm hearing, that's probably 2 first-round picks. You give up 2 first-round picks, suddenly we probably don't have the firepower to go get the next Bradley Beal, Dame Lillard,
Who's giving up
X.
2 first-round picks for Aaron Gordon?
What do you think he's going to go for? I mean,
I don't know. I wouldn't go
that's
anywhere
what
near that.
from what I'm, well, yeah. I mean, from what I'm
I mean, I
hearing,
don't know if that's what
that's
he's
kind
worth.
of the going
I
rate.
wouldn't touch it, but I don't know
I
if
think.
that's what he's worth. That's what he's worth. But
Well, at the deadline, if Gordon is available, look at all these teams that could probably use him. You don't think someone will give 2 late firsts for Aaron Gordon?
I don't know. I mean, someone that's given that up, or someone that's trading for him, is what, someone that's probably on the bubble, trying to
Not
be
to
a
mention,
contender.
I know Aaron Gordon was just an example. He's out now about a month with a
Yeah,
sprained ankle.
sure.
Anyway, but I mean, also, yeah, I mean, I think calls were made on Gordon in the offseason, and they were told, at least for, you know, for 2 firsts was the starting point. I forget who, maybe Zach Lowe. I don't want to miscredit the source, but I did hear someone reporting that Portland called on Gordon before eventually making the trade for Covington, and they traded for Covington, and they traded 2 firsts for him because that was a cheaper cost than what the Magic wanted for Gordon. Granted, you know, it's further along, the price might have gone down a little, but I don't know. To me, a solid young player
Yeah.
with years left at a reasonable price, who fills, you know, an important need, like I said, in what's going to be a seller's market. It's just hard to me it's hard to believe that it will take that, you know, 2 firsts even would be enough to get it done. And if so, barely. And like I said, would you even do that knowing that then you don't really have any ability to go chase a Bradley Beal or whoever in the offseason?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think we need to spend too much time on Aaron Gordon, but just to kind
No,
of
I didn't mean
wrap that up.
He's just a name I threw out.
I don't dislike him. I mean, I think he's a good player.
Sure.
And
But I think
he's
it's more
just not
any player in general.
Yeah.
How much draft equity are you willing to give up for a guy who is good, but not, not more of a role player, I guess, who would just be a depth piece for this year?
Yeah.
Harrison Barnes is another
I'm willing
guy.
to start
Someone like that.
giving up firsts, not multiple,
Plural?
I guess. I mean, I'd like to, like someone like Harrison Barnes. I know I think you've been talking about it lately. I'm happy with that. I mean, he's got what? He's got a couple years left, right?
Yeah, I think he has 3. He might have 2 more after this.
Yeah. So I mean, a guy like
But he's
that.
still young.
Ideally, if I'm giving up first, I want somebody with term.
Well, right. That's
at least
the thing.
another year. And like you said, he's 28.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. I'm willing to talk more picks if it's someone, and that was kind of the reason I brought up Gordon, because he's young and has years left. So you could, convince yourself that he's another real piece next to Tatum and Brown, and Marcus potentially, and Williams. Like that could be your 5-man lineup with that's all roughly in the same age we're in. Whatever. So yeah, if you're gonna give up equity, and I was talking on Twitter today about Evan Fournier, who you and I have talked about, who I think would be a great piece, and it just is kind of unfortunate that he's on an expiring deal. So are you gonna give up a first for a guy who is probably a rental? It's tough, and I would have said no, but I mean, again, now kind of with how good Tatum and Brown have looked, I'm more liable to say, yeah, what the hell, give up a first for Fournier, and maybe, how much of a pipe dream is it anyway to think that we're going to get a Bradley Beal or someone like that? Is that reason enough to hoard these picks, so to speak?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm kind of losing, the dream that we're going to make us trade for some superstar.
We don't need to.
No, we don't need to. I mean, it'd be nice if, it was the right move, like Beal, for instance, but it seems like it'd be too difficult to pull off in our case without overpaying, or even paying what he's worth.
I don't know about that. We can get into this conversation later, but I think if Beal stays on the Wizards through this year, we are very much in play in the offseason and beyond. If he gets traded in season, there's really no way we can get him. Yeah. But from everything that's being reported, he still hasn't asked out, wants to stay. No trade is imminent. So if he stays put, at the end of the year, then there are realistic paths for the Celtics to acquire him. And, one of those starts with maybe using this TPE on a big, contract that could get attached to that. Or maybe, I hate to say it, but maybe that contract is Kemba.
Yeah. That's that's one of the biggest things for me as far as using the TPE. That's why I said I want someone with term, because, we need tradable contracts, which we don't really have. I mean, we have players under contract, but it's people that could match salary. I mean, like Harrison Barnes would be a great salary match.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Tristan's has a salary match. I don't know. We could probably trade him by the deadline, right? I don't know. We probably won't.
I think it's February 6th. Thompson is eligible to be dealt. But at this point, the way he's playing, he would be just money. That's it. Right. You'd have to attach something with him. He's not. You couldn't convince anyone he's a meaningful piece of a rotation even.
Yeah. So I don't think Kemba's going anywhere. So we need to certainly not acquire some tradable contracts. And I don't want to just start trading for $15 million contracts for guys that aren't going to play. Like ideally, you get a little bit of both.
Right.
That's why Harrison's good. George Hill, I think we said, has a year left after this, I believe. Just adding guys like that, guys that can, have been around for a while, know how to score. And I think for me, the biggest need would be 3-and-D guy that can handle the ball. And I know there's not a lot of those, but I think that's ideally what we're looking for because, I know the Smart and Pritchard injuries aren't going to be forever, but you never know. I mean, those could linger. Be nice to have someone else that can handle the ball, but, I don't really want to trade for a guard. If we can
Well,
get someone that can,
it depends what kind of guard, I think. If it's a bigger guard who can guard some wings
yeah,
and is, a really good shooter, okay, throw in the ball handling. And because that's kind of the thing about George Hill. He's kind of more of a combo guard. He can run your offense. He can stand in the corner and give you plus 3-point shooting, and he can defend.
yeah.
So if you get someone like that, sure. But otherwise, I'm kind of with the sentiment. Just looking at the list, we've obviously already talked about kind of the obvious names that everyone's thrown around. While we're on the Magic, I still think Terrence Ross is kind of flying under the radar as someone who could give us something similar and is under contract through 2023. He's, I think, at about, 13 mil something is a nice number. Reddick has been, like we mentioned, has been thrown out, but he's expiring. Same with Patty Mills. I had an eye on Norman Powell, but now the Raptors are playing better and he looks really good. So I don't know how realistic that is. The teams that I am kind of monitoring as stealth options who aren't being talked about as much. So one is the Rockets, who have looked good and been really fun since the Harden trade. They're playing the best defense in the NBA, and they've been a blast to watch. So good for them. But I'd keep my eye on that if they do decide, we may want to shed some guys. They've got a ton of guys who would kind of help us out. PJ Tucker and Eric Gordon being the most obvious ones there. We've talked about Thaddeus Young from the Bulls, a guy like that. So there are players out there who intrigue me. Another team I would call is the Pistons. Wayne Ellington has played amazing, and his 3-point shooting is just been absurd. So if he's a guy they're willing to trade, which I don't know if they would because they just signed him to cheap, and another guy they signed, DeLon Wright, he'd kind of be a good 3-and-D guy who really quiet, no buzz around him in the offseason, but man, the Mavs really miss him, and he's had some nice moments for the Pistons. So again, I don't want to get, speculate too much about a million guys, but just a few names and teams to kind of keep an eye on. And those are the kind of players I'm looking for. It's not going to be something splashy, and casual Celtics fans will probably scoff at whoever it ends up being, but it's someone who will probably really help us if you think about it.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's too early to really speculate. I know that's our favorite thing to do, but we kind of have this, we're on the same page as far as what we're looking for. Not necessarily who, I guess, just kind of, I think we agree that we need, some help shooting 3-and-D guy. It's pretty much, what everyone's looking for at this point in the year.
Right.
Um,
So yeah, it's going to be tough to find. And there's a reason those guys are so important, because there aren't that many that really do that job well.
Mhm.
And again, all of these guys you think about getting, you have to think, all right, is that really, at what point is it just not even really an upgrade over who we're already rolling with? So
yeah,
it's tough.
It's
a tough line. We've been straddling a tough line for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think how good we look kind of at our best has made the line even tougher to straddle now.
Yeah.
And now fans, they know that the clock is ticking on that TPE, although it's a full calendar year. So I know everyone thinks we have to use it before the deadline, but technically we could use it in the offseason. And from my understanding, it's not cap space, but it almost is cap space if we really convince a free agent, because we can turn it into a sign and trade and use the TPE almost exactly how kind of Charlotte technically signed but traded for Hayward. They didn't need to do it, but I'm pretty sure we could do that. So the clock is ticking, and it isn't at the same time.
I think we'll find out how much Danny and Brad believe in this team, depending on what he does at the deadline, and if they spend the TPE, at the deadline, and who they spend it on.
Yeah. And I think the average fan would be disappointed if we do nothing. And I think that's fair. I think those guys have looked good enough that they deserve, I don't want to say an all-in move, but at least a move to say, we think we're good enough to win it. We're going to try to make some moves at the margins to go in.
We've been waiting for what it seems like, anyways. Is Danny's been waiting for, he's been happy to sit back and let Tatum and Brown develop, and now
and it's hard to argue with
like
it.
They're ready. I don't know if they're, it's hard to say if someone's they're championship ready yet.
But
you don't really know until you know.
to think
but
they're not.
it looks like they could be. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if now's the time to do it, I'd say.
And I think the one piece that we haven't touched upon that's kind of a question mark and, potentially could fill some needs is Romeo Langford, who, I'm hoping will come back soon. We've always been told we'd get an update in February, but he's doing at least some work, basketball related stuff. So hopefully he's progressing along. If he can rejoin the team at some point and build on what he was last year and really just fill kind of that spot we were just talking about, if he could be a solid wing defender, and make shots and create a little bit, and then our bench is suddenly Pritchard, Langford, Ogilvy, Robert Williams. Romeo might end up being kind of that combo wing 3-and-D guy. I'm just not sure we can get anyone better than him at the deadline, which, would be a nice surprise if Romeo comes back healthy and looks good. But, if not, that would be, I guess disappointing. I don't
Yeah, no,
want to
I'm
say
not putting
disappointing with how hurt he's been, but
I'm not putting any stock to him. I mean, I
that's fair.
like
Fair.
the idea of him, but
Yeah,
he hasn't been reliable yet. So until he shows he can stay healthy,
sure.
stay on the court.
That's
Whatever.
totally
But
fair. There's no
I would just
reason to
think
expect
if he comes
anything.
back and plays well, it's a bonus. But
We're right.
I'm just
and
going to
that's-
assume he doesn't exist at this point.
I guess just as we were talking about kind of, what changes we can make, that's one other change that could impact, of the team on the fringe, which is really all we're talking about at this point. If he can come in and be a good, an above average bench player, then we're golden.
I mean,
And,
if anything, I think probably his most value this year would be in a trade. I don't see him coming in.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he can come in and contribute, but I mean,
Eh,
he's probably.
it's going to be
I
hard.
think he has value. I mean, I know
I
he
don't
hasn't been
know.
healthy, but he was.
It
a
would feel
late
like
lotto
selling
pick.
low. It
Yeah, I
depends
mean,
what we could get, but it
I'm
would
not
feel
saying
like a
we're
sell
gonna
low.
get a haul for him, but I mean, for the right deal, I would give him up. Like for a guy, if we were getting a guy back that fills that role, like Harrison Barnes, for instance.
Okay, but
I would
how
move him.
that makes no sense because his money, if it was matching money, sure, but what is he making? 2.5 million? Like there's no world where we'd have, I don't know.
I mean, it's not. I don't think it'd be
Like he
matching
doesn't
money.
help us
I
as
mean,
a trade asset at all.
I
I don't.
I mean, if Sacramento wants, a first and a young player, I mean, why can't?
Yeah.
Why can't he be that
Yeah. I
young
mean,
player?
I guess if it comes down to that, I think you'd have to pull the trigger. But
Yeah. I mean, he's basically a draft pick at this point. I think because he's basically raw talent. He hasn't really proven anything, but he hasn't shown he's not anything. So I think he's pretty much just an unknown.
That's fair. I still think I mean, I guess unless you're right, unless a team likes him and specifically says, we want Langford as the centerpiece of a trade for a really solid player, I still think his best value to us is getting healthy and just expanding on what we saw last year and kind of limited opportunity. And like we keep saying, if he can come in and be our bench wing and do a good job, what more, that's essentially what we'd be trading for anyway, is like a bench wing. So if he can be it, all the better.
That's enough Romeo talk for me. I think I fit my quota.
So should we move on to Javante then?
Yeah, Javante next. We have some time.
Right.
I don't know. So let's just get into overall picture. Celtics, like, are we contenders? Are we not? What do we have to do to be a contender? What do you see from the other teams in the East? Who's the biggest competition? I mean, just overall, what do you think we're looking at this year?
I mean, again, I think what we talked about at the front of the show, and with the true ascension of the Jays, our championship window, I'd say, is officially open. Those guys, like we said, they're playing at this level. Jalen should be an all-star starter. He's been one of the best 10 players in the whole NBA easily. And I think Tatum is basically on that level too. He just hasn't played as much, is probably the biggest thing holding him back. So yeah, look around the league, 2 superstars, you're a title contender. And I think that's pretty much what we have on both ends, a good coach. So, for this year, it comes down to Kemba largely. If we already mentioned it, but if we get good Kemba, we're a title contender this year. Brooklyn, wow, just wow. So much offense, so little defense. I still think they're at least one move away because I just don't see how they can go into a playoff series playing the players on their roster on defense in the course of a series just isn't going to work against a lot of teams. Can they win every game on route to a title 150 to 149? Maybe. I mean, maybe they have enough offensive firepower that it's not impossible. I just can't imagine that's what they're going to try to do. So I think there's another move coming, and then it's hard to assess the Nets right now, other than that they have obviously the most frontline talent in probably the whole league. So you'd imagine that's kind of the team we're gunning for, but beyond them, and really the only reason they even have that credibility is KD. But you look at the rest of the teams, I mean, still, they haven't shown me anything that worries me more than usual. Sure, Philly's looked good, but again, when we're at full strength, we've always had the answers for Philly and Embiid and all those players. The Bucks, they've looked good. They've looked like the Bucks, still kind of missing that one piece to me. They haven't really unlocked anything new, at least yet. So yeah, I think the Celtics, they're right there with everyone because of that frontline talent at the most premium position. We add another guy, we get Kemba rolling. No one's going to want to play us. We can certainly beat anyone. The Nets are kind of that one big wild card, at least in the East, because of all that talent. And if they can, maybe use Harris as a trade piece or whatever, and kind of somehow even tweak that lineup a little more, which they're going to have to get creative, but I think they have to do it. So, I mean, if they could definitely end up with a finished product come playoff time, that is probably a step ahead of whatever the Celtics can get to this year. But yeah, otherwise, we're a contender. We definitely are a contender, and it's because of those two guys.
So you're on the record that the window is now officially open and the Celtics are championship contenders and we're in win now mode.
The window has just been like we unlocked it and we're kind of jimmying it because it's
It's
kind
stuck.
of
It's an
frozen in
old window.
place. It's been
Right.
it's an old window. We got to shake it and loosen it up, but it's loosened up and we're ready to just burst it right open.
All right.
And then it should only open wider and wider, obviously. But I think sooner than anyone could have realistically expected it, we're dusting the window off.
All right. So we just need some oil it up, grease it up, and bust it open, and then floodgates are open.
I don't think I'm being a homer to say that this team with who's on the roster today at full health and full potential, and I don't mean potential as in imagining what could happen. I mean, if they all play to what they've already shown us and can just do it all at the same time, healthily, I think we can beat any team in the NBA.
Okay. Well, I'm happy we
agree. Disagree?
Yeah. With the assumption that the Jays continue to play all NBA level.
Yeah, being who they've proven to be. I mean, again, like
Yes.
we've said, I think Jalen has proven that this isn't a fluke. This is who he is.
So if they play the way they are, Kemba gets back to 80% Kemba. I still think adding one more piece, like we've been talking about, nothing huge, but that 3-and-D wing or something. So I don't think that's not a huge ask. I mean, I think that's very reasonable. So those three things, I'd say,
the other thing too, we've spent, and there's a Celtics podcast, so we spend 99% of the time talking about the Celtics. But look at these teams we're playing, and look at some of the guys. It's not like other teams are bringing all-stars off their bench. Everyone's got these same issues we've got. The key is we have two superstars now who are better than maybe any other team's two best stars. So that gives you a fighting chance. That makes you a contender in this league. That's it. That's it to me. The rest now it's on Danny, it's on Brad to put the rest of the pieces around him. But we've got the guys.
Superstars win championships. That's what it comes out to. We're there.
I think so.
And yeah, I mean, Brooklyn, assuming they can play some sort of defense, They obviously.
I don't think that's a safe assumption.
I know. I mean, if they
I
can,
really
they
don't.
still probably seem like the team to beat.
They
I don't know.
just
I mean, I think I feel like they looked like a better team before the Harden trade.
yeah.
I don't know if
Well, that's
that's
fair. They had Jared
accurate.
Allen.
I
They had Jared
mean,
Allen on the team alone. Just his defense alone probably made them a better defensive team. And then Levert, who hasn't played, but I mean he was playing and was a good two-way player.
they were
Um,
just deep. It
they
was
just
good
look at their
roster
roster.
construction.
Just gave up too many guys. They have 8
Yeah,
players. They have 9 players. They have basically one big guy, and it's DeAndre Jordan, who's
yeah.
a
100 years old.
statue of himself. They're playing right now. Their lineup is basically Durant and Jeff Green as the bigs.
Yeah.
Which is not sustainable to defend anyone in the NBA, regardless of how healthy Durant is. Even at his best, when he's playing center for the Warriors, that was with Draymond Green next to him, a guy who's undersized but certainly one of the best defenders in the league. Right now, there's no one like that around. Like I don't know, they need something there, or that's just you get by your guy on the perimeter and it's a layup.
Yeah, they'll do something. I don't know what it's gonna be, but
Yeah, no, I agree. There's a move to be made.
They'll do something. Like we just said, superstars win championships, and
Definitely, and
they have a
that's
few
why
of those.
and that's why they're the favorites still in my books.
Mm-hmm.
You just, like you said, you give the benefit of the doubt to the talent, but at the same time, I can't sit here or watch what I've seen from them and say, "Oh, there's no way the Celtics could beat them in a series."
Right. And as far as, I mean, everyone's kind of, I mean, the real true, I'd say, contenders in the East are all pretty much clumped together, similar record-wise. Other than, I mean, I guess I don't know where you have the Heat. I don't think they're a true contender despite going to the finals, but I don't think we're going to be able to. I don't think we're going to know a lot about a team in the regular season just looking at their record. Just the way the schedule is constructed with all the home and homes. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of parity. I mean, no matter what the matchups are, it's hard to beat a team twice in a row.
Well, in the COVID, I mean, look at the Heat's record is terrible, but they've played so many games without Butler, without Hero. It's just not indicative of who they are. And I agree.
Right.
I still think, they're, despite the bubble, I still think they're a notch below the top tier in the East. But yeah, it's dumb to judge any of these teams on basically their regular season record. I think it's more watching and, kind of making takeaways. And that's more what I'm basing it on, where I look around the league and I think what the Celtics have shown and the stuff we've talked about with Brown and Tatum is sustainable regardless of COVID year or wins or losses or whatever. So that's what I've taken away. That's why it's the biggest takeaway. And again, that's like you've said, the biggest thing in the NBA, getting the frontline talent. We've got it. They're locked up long term. It's all good. It's all good. We don't need to stress these little regular season losses. I think
that's my go-to.
I know.
That's what I do.
At a certain point, it's like, man, I want to sit back and enjoy this. This is, watching these guys ascend this fast is special, and
I enjoy overreacting personally.
I know, but they always say kind of the most fun part as a fan is the growth, where you still don't have any real expectations, but the team is good and fun and you can tell it's coming. And I think that's where we've kind of been. And I think we're now transitioning on to the point where they're so good that now the expectations are there. And now it's becoming a little more stressful. And I mean, again, like we said, it's still, I think we've been 90% positive because, we should celebrate Brown and Tatum being what they are at this age. But the expectations are coming. The window has been cracked open. And we all know what comes with those things.
Yeah. I mean, other than Brooklyn, I mean, the contenders in the East are pretty much the same teams that they've been for the last few years, I'd say. Philly's obviously looked good. But, it's going to come down to, I mean, it's pretty much them and the Bucks. It's going to be the same question marks. Can Philly win with Embiid, a center, a big man being the best player? Regardless of that, he's looked, MVP caliber, and he's basically unstoppable. We haven't seen that he can be the best player on a team that even gets to the Eastern Conference finals. I mean,
Well, yeah, not even
has
just
he
him.
been?
When was
Have
the
they
last?
been in the Eastern Conference Finals with Embiid?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I mean,
Well, we
obviously
haven't
he's
even
getting better every year,
we haven't
but
even seen any big guy. When was
Oh,
the last
yeah.
time a big guy led a team to the finals?
yeah,
Like
I mean that's what I
clearly
mean. is-
was the focal point on offense and defense. It's
exactly. So
you
I
got to
mean
go back a
that's the question.
ways.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah, so I mean, is he? I guess the question then, maybe for a different podcast is, has Embiid risen to like a Shaq, Duncan echelon? Yeah, I mean his play, it looks that way, but can he sustain that for bring that every night for 4 series in a in the playoff setting?
I mean,
We'll see.
even
See.
if he has ascended to Shaq
Well,
Duncan status, would a
he's
Shaq Duncan be
in today's NBA, right?
right? Yeah. It's
Yeah,
just I don't know.
it's fair to ask. He's been unreal, and he's made them, he's put them on that true contenders list too. I'd say where they, they should feel like they can beat any team in the East. Why not?
Yeah, no. I mean, it's same with the Bucks. Really, it's
Yeah.
the Bucks are the Bucks. Can Giannis get them over the hump? I mean,
Right.
he's reigning what? He's won MVP 2 years in a
Back
row,
to
right?
back.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's the best player
Yeah.
theory in the
And
league
I
in the
mean,
last 2 years.
I think there's like Bucks fatigue in general, where
Yeah.
people are just kind of like, ugh, prove it
Yeah.
in the playoffs. I've
I'm
seen
sick of
this show
talking about
before,
them.
which is fine. But again, how much of a fluke was the bubble? I think they were good enough last year that if the things rolled right, they easily could have made the finals. And I think that's just as true this year.
Yeah. I mean, their team, their roster is pretty loaded. I mean, I feel like it's loaded every year though. But I mean, this year with Drew at point, I just think they have a great construction. They're built, almost perfectly around Giannis. So they're just kind of running out of excuses, I think, at this point. They have to at least
absolutely
get deep into the Eastern Conference Finals, or else it's different.
No, I mean,
something has to happen.
It's at least make the finals or bust for the Bucks, I would say. Whether that's fair or not, thanks to this new, Brooklyn super team, is another story. But if you get the 1 seed 2 years in a row, you get the MVP 2 years in a row, it's finals or bust. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is.
Well, I think that's fair. Once you have these expectations, you have to meet them, or else.
If Tatum wins back-to-back MVPs and we get the 1 seed 2 years in a row and don't make the finals either year, I think people will be
blow it up.
Quite critical compared to how they're, kind of talking about Milwaukee. So keep these things in mind sometimes when we critique our own team, to look around the league and think, maybe it could be worse.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That's pretty much everything I had on my notes. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add, or if you want to wrap it up, but I think we touched on a lot today.
Yeah, I think that was a good reset, good kind of state of the Celtics union, where we're at the 1 quarter mark, about where we'd expect it to be. Nothing. Sure, we could be a few games better in the win-loss column, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think that would really change anything. I've seen what I wanted to see and more. It's just about, keep it going, keep rounding into form, stay healthy.
Yeah, I agree. Like every other year, I think things are going to become much more clear, after the trade deadline, when everything falls into place, when all the final moves are made, buyout market is over, we can see what every team looks like going into the playoffs, healthy. Don't really know how to judge, but happy with where the Celtics are for the most part. I think we're getting close.
I think so. It's gonna be exciting.
All right. Well, this was good. Hopefully, there won't be as big of a gap in between this episode as the last one. But
amen. Well, hey,
we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. I'd like to take a shot on the air to congratulate Nick, our co-host here, for the birth of his first child, the proud father. So if ever there was a reason to take a short hiatus, I think that was it. So congratulations.
I'm ready to get back on the horse now.
Amen.
All right, buddy. It was good talking. I'll talk to you soon.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
All right, see ya.
I'm giving my enemies L's. No disrespect, but I send them to where the Kennedys dwell. Sick as a young Ozzy Osbourne to be kamikaze. That's airborne. Pop you like Asti Spumante. Body meet the